Friends, welcome to Dr. Varsha Gaitonde's channel. In this video, we shall see the important facts and figures about Ppv-Fr 2001, that is Protection of Plant Variety and Farmers Act. The basic thing about Ppv-Fr is it's a right to establish an effective system for the protection of varieties, the rights of farmers and breeders, and to encourage the development of new varieties of plants. It has been considered necessary to recognize and protect the rights of the farmers in respect of their contributions made at any time in conserving, improving, making available plant genetic resources for the development of new plant varieties. Indian legislation is not only in conformity with the International Union for the Plant Protection of New Varieties of Plants, that is UPO 1978, but also have sufficient provisions to protect the interests of public sector breeding institutions and farmers. The legislation recognizes the contribution of both commercial breeders and farmers in plant breeding activity and also provides the implement TRIPS, that is trade related intellectual property rights, in a way that supports the specific socio-economic interests of all the stakeholders, including private, public sector and research institutes, as well as resource constrained farmers. Coming to the framework of Ppv-Fr, to implement the provision of Act, the Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare established the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Right Authority on 11th November 2005. The chairperson is the Chief Executive of the authority. Besides the chairperson, the authority has 15 members as notified by the Government of India. 8 of them are ex officio members representing various departments or ministries, 3 from state agriculture universities and state governments, 1 representative each for farmers, tribal organization, seed industry, and women organization associated with agricultural activities are nominated by the central government. Registrar General is the ex officio member of Secretary of the Authority. Coming to the objectives of Ppv-Fr Act 2001, first objective is to establish an effective system for the protection of plant varieties, the rights of farmers and breeders to encourage the development of new varieties of plants. The second objective is to recognize and protect the rights of farmers in respect of their contribution made at any time in conserving, improving, and making available plant genetic resources for the development of new plant varieties. The third objective is to accelerate agricultural development in the country, protect plant breeders' rights, stimulate investment for research and development of both in public and private sectors for the development of new plant varieties. And the fourth objective is facilitating the growth of seed industry in the country, which will ensure the availability of high quality seeds and planting material to the farmers. Coming to the general functions of the authority, the first and foremost function is registration of new plant varieties, essentially derived varieties and extant varieties. Whenever we talk about the plant varietal protection, three things comes into picture. One is varietal registration, new variety and essentially derived variety. That is the function of Ppv-Fr. Then developing does test guidelines for new plant species, that is distinctness, uniformity, stability and novelty guidelines for different crops. Along with, they'll collaborate with the institutions or national bodies which are working on particular crop, and they will prepare the guidelines. Developing characterization and documentation of varieties registered, compulsory cataloging facilities for all variety of plants, then documentation, indexing, cataloging of farmers' varieties, recognition and rewarding farmers, community of farmers, particularly tribal and rural community engaged in conservation and improvement, preservation of plant genetic resources of economic plants and their wild relatives, maintenance of the National Register of Plant Varieties, and maintaining the National Gene Bank. These are the main functions of Ppv-Fr 2001. Now we shall see some of the frequently asked questions about the institution, then the functions of the institutions, etc. The most important question is why protection of plant varieties has become an important issue. The reason is breeding activities and exploitation of new varieties are the decision factors for improving rural income and our overall economic development. Since the process of plant breeding is long and expensive, it is important to provide an effective system of plant varietal protection with an aim to encourage the development of new varieties of plants for the benefit of society. That means due to the breeding activities only, the rural people will be benefited because of maybe high yield or any specific character. For example, the Green Revolution rice variety IR8, which increased the rice production of the country, as well as if we talk about the wheat during that Sonalika, Kalyan Sona, and other varieties like HD series, Arjun, and all, they played a key role in improving the national production. Likewise, the contribution behind that was a breeder only to encourage and ensure protection of his rights is the major motto of this particular instrument. Okay, what's a variety? Variety means a plant grouping except microorganisms within a single botanical taxon of the lowest known rank, which can be defined by the expression of the characteristics resulting from a given genotype of the plant grouping, distinguished from any other plant grouping by expression of at least one of the said character, considered as unit with regard to its suitability for being propagating, which remain unchanged after such propagation and include propagating material of such variety, extant variety, transgenic variety, farmer's variety, and essentially derived variety. Essentially derived variety. The variety which has been essentially derived from the existing variety by any means like genetic engineering, mutation, tissue culture derived, backcross derivation, or any other. That means by using special techniques, already developed variety or hybrid is improved. That technique, the variety derived from such techniques is nothing but essentially derived variety. It is clearly distinguishable from such initial variety and conforms to such initial variety in the expression of the essential characters that result from the genotype or combination of genotype of such initial variety. What is the definition of a farmer in Ppv-Fr Act? Farmer means who cultivates crops by cultivating the land himself, or cultivates crop by directly supervising the cultivation of land through any other person, or conserves and preserve severely or jointly with any person any wild species or traditional varieties through selection and identification of their useful properties. What is a farmer's variety? Farmer's variety is which has been traditionally cultivated and evolved by the farmers in their fields. It's a wild relative or land races or a variety about which the farmer possesses the common knowledge, or farmer's variety is exempted from application registration fee and his application need not be accompanied with fees. Affidavit for Terminator technology. Is there any relaxation in purity standards and requirements of seeds for test? The answer is the number of off types for farmers' varieties shall not exceed double of the number of off types prescribed for a new variety. The seed required for half of the quantity prescribed for the new variety. That means whatever the prescribed standards are there under Ppv-Fr right for breeders and other researchers, double of that number of types or relaxation in the purity standards is given to the farmers. What are farmers' rights? Farmers who has bred or developed a new plant variety shall be entitled for registration and other protection under Ppv-Fr 2001 in the same manner as the breeder of a variety. Farmer who is engaged in conserving of genetic resources of land races and wild relatives of economic plants and their improvement through selection and preservation shall be entitled in the prescribed manner for recognition and reward from the gene fund, provided that material so selected and prescribed has been used as donors of genes in varieties registered under this Act. Farmers shall be entitled to save, use, sow, resow, exchange, and share or sell his farm produce, including seed of a variety protected under this Act, in the same manner as he was entitled before the coming into force of this Act, provided that the farmer shall not be entitled to sell branded seed of a variety protected under this Act. What is the duration of protection of a registered plant variety? This has separate guidelines for UPO Act Treaty and RPPVFR. India is not a permanent member of UPO, it's an observer. So we have our own rules and regulations regarding the rules for plant varietal protection. The general protection strategy for trees and vines is 18 years, that is initial protection of 9 years and later extendable is again 9 years, and for other crops the initial protection is 6 years and after that 9 years. Okay, for extant varieties notified it is 15 years from the date of notification under section 5 of the Seeds Act 1966. Is there any time limit for filling the varieties for registration under extant category? Yes, there is time limit usually fixed by the authority for 6 years for extant varieties. Okay, 10 years for registration of farmers varieties from the date of publication of approval of authority in plant varieties. Can a variety under extant category be filled after the prescribed time limit? No. Can a new and distinct plant found growing in nature be protected? As such, those plant varieties present in wilderness cannot be registered. That means the forest species which are naturally growing in the forest, like thick forests like Western Ghats or Eastern Ghats, like that, these cannot be protected under Ppv-Fr authority. However, any traditionally cultivated plant variety which has undergone the process of domestication, improvement through human intervention can be registered and protected subjected to fulfillment of the eligibility criteria. Next question is, what are the characteristics which may be used for distinguishing a variety? That is nothing but dust test. Novelty, distinctness, uniformity and stability is the criteria to distinguish a new variety. The prerequisites for filling the application form of registration of plant variety is denomination assigned to such variety, then accompanied by affidavit that variety does not contain any Terminator gene technology, complete passport data of parental lines from which the variety has been derived along with the geographical location in India, and all such information relating to the contribution, if any, of the farmers, village, community, institution, or organization, etc., in breeding, evolving, developing the variety. Characteristics of a variety with description for novelty, distinctness, uniformity, and stability. A declaration that genetic material used for breeding of such variety has been lawfully acquired. Breeder or other person making application for registration shall disclose the use of genetic material conserved by any tribal or rural families for improvement of such variety. How to check the status of any application? It is available in the official website of Ppv-Fr authority. The form of Ppv-Fr authority means the initial application form consists of application for registration made in the form prescribed under Ppv-Fr Regulation 2006. Form number 1 for registration of new variety, extant variety and farmers variety. Form number 2 is meant for essentially derived varieties. Then technical questionnaire attained with form number 1 and 2 or 2 for detailed information of the concerned variety. These filled application forms must be accompanied by the registration fee as notified in the Gazette of India dated in 15/6/2015 and details given in the website, that is plantauthority.government.in. Who can apply for the registration of any variety? The conditions for application of a registration is any person claiming to be breeder of a variety, any successor of the breeder of variety, any person being the assignee of the breeder of the variety in respect of the right to make such applications, any farmer or group of farmers or community of farmers claiming to be breeder of the variety, any person authorized to make application on behalf of farmers, any university or publicly funding agency, institution claiming to be breeder of a variety. Next question is, which is the office for making application of registration of plant variety? This complete address you must know. Application for registration of varieties can be made in the address of Office of Register, Ppv-Fr, New Delhi. The address of the office is also you should also write that DPS Marg opposite Todapur, New Delhi. And before that you should write Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare Society Block, second floor, NACSC complex. Also, any information regarding the protection, application fee structure, etc. can be obtained from the other offices. Compiled forms in triplicate should be submitted with fees or charges submitted to the registrar with all enclosures with affidavit TQ in his office or can be sent by registered post. 5 branch offices have also been opened, in one in Guwahati, that is in Assam, then Ranchi in Jharkhand, Palampur in Himachal Pradesh, Shimoga in Karnataka and Pune in Maharashtra to facilitate the applicants. That means they will provide the all information, free structure and everything in order to help the registration body or any farmer or breeder. Can an application for registration of plant varieties be made through an agent? Yes, a breeder or a farmer can apply for registration either in person or through his agent. Is it necessary to submit the seed propagating material before registration? Yes, the breeder shall be required to deposit the seed or propagating material, including parental line seeds of registered variety, to the authority. Applicant has to submit a fixed amount of seed sample with prescribed germination percentage, physical purity, and phytosanitary standards. The applicant shall also submit, along with the seed and or propagating material, the seed quality test report. What is done with the seed received by the authority? मतलब authority seed को लेके क्या करेंगे? The seed sample received by the authority will be properly tested for its purity and germination. Germination और purity का test करेंगे. A part of the seed sample sent to the test center for conducting dust test and part of is kept by the authority in the National Gene Bank to maintain the seed samples of registered variety for their entire period of protection. That means one part, आप जो जितने भी seed deposit करेंगे, there will be prescribed amount of seed to be deposited and from that seed one part they'll send for dust test and the other part they'll keep under the national gene bank to maintain it for the further propagation as well as a seed during the problematic period. That means कभी genetic wipeout or genetic vulnerability हो जाएगा, and if that variety will get ruined under such circumstances, gene bank will provide that particular variety. Or else if breeder or any researcher is requesting for that variety in a very proper manner, then again if they are going in proper channel, they'll provide the seeds to them. Next is, can a person apply for registration of a variety which is already in the market? Any variety which is already in the market but not for more than a year can be applied for registration as a new variety. Other older varieties can be applied for registration as extant variety. The cost of registration of a plant variety is given as, for essentially derived variety, if a individual breeder or person is giving 7,000 is the registration fee. For extant varieties and other varieties of common knowledge, the educational institute has fee of 10,000, and for commercial registration it is 50,000. Extant variety notified under Section 5 of Seed Act 1966. The extent for registration of extant variety 2000 is the fees, and for farmers variety no fees. Only during the process of plant varietal protection they should spend around 10 rupees for as a fees deposition. The annual fee for new variety is 2000 and 0.2% of the sales charge. Then for extant variety it is 2000 rupees. Extant variety other than the category specified and that doesn't come under Section 5 of Seeds Act 1966, that should also deposit 2000 plus 0.1% of the sales value of the seeds of the registered variety during the previous year plus 0.5% of royalty if any received during the previous year from the sale proceed of seeds of the registered variety. What are the exceptions provided under Ppv-Fr Act 2001? Two exemptions are provided. One is farmer's exemption and researcher's exemption. Farmer's exemption means farmer shall be entitled to produce, save, use, sow, resow, exchange, share or sell his farm produce, including seed of a variety protected under this Act. Researcher's exemption is use of registered variety for conducting experiment and use of a variety as an initial source of variety for the purpose of creating other varieties. The act of infringement of rights provided to the registered breeder under the acts are: if a person who is not a breeder of a variety registered under this act, or a registered agent or a registered licensee of that variety sells, exports, imports or produce such variety without the permission of its breeder or within the scope of a registered license or registered agency without the permission of the registered license or registered agent. If a person uses, sells, exports, imports, or produces any other variety giving such variety the denomination identical with or deceptively similar to the denomination of a variety already registered under this Act in such a way that it causes confusion in the minds of general people in identifying the registered variety. Is there any punishment if any person falsely represent a variety as a registered variety? Yes, if any person falsely represent, then he shall be punished with imprisonment for a term not less than 6 months, which can be extended up to 3 years, or with a fine not less than rupees 1 lakh, which may be extended to 5 lakh, or with both. Currently, 147 species are protected under Ppv-Fr. Is there any provision of outside testing for trees and vines? Yes. The applicant has an option for the site testing and the fee prescribed will not exceed 4 times of the prescribed for normal tests. The details is again available in the Ppv-Fr site. Provision for special tests are that test should be conducted only when dust testing fails to establish the requirements of distinctness. That means the four principles, that is novelty, distinctness, uniformity and stability, इनमें से distinctness fail हो जाएगा, then only the special test, dust test, can be conducted. The dust testing shall be field and multi-location based for at least 2 crop seasons and special tests at laboratory based. Authorities shall charge separate fees for conducting dust tests and special tests on each variety. The fees for dust and special test shall be such to provide column 3 of the second schedule for the purpose. How to get information about general and specific guidelines for dust testing. The general and specific guidelines for dust testing of 147 notified crop varieties are available in various issues of Ppv Journals of India. This authority in its 28th meeting held on 22nd 11 2017 has decided that printing and circulation of hard copies of plant varietal journals should be dispersed with effect from December 2017 and thereafter with effect from January 2018. The plant variety journal will be uploaded in the website of Ppv-Fr authority with the digital signature of the registrar. From which date the Ppv-Fr authority starts receiving application for registration of plant variety. Registration of varieties of 12 notified crop species from 21st May 2007 to at prescribed the authorities accepting the applications of 147 notified crop species. What are the guidelines for submission of applications for registration of plant varieties? Guideline is every application must be submitted in triplicate and signed by the applicant for the representativeness. Application should be submitted in hard copy along with all essential requirements by hand or by post till further notice. Applications will be received from Monday to Friday working hours 10 hours to 3 p.m. That means 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Every application must have the name of the applicant, their address, nationality as well as address of service of their agent. Office of the Registrar shall issue acknowledgement of receipt and number which shall be used for all the future references, including checking of the status of application. Remember that if a person is claiming for plant varietal protection in a certain country, it doesn't mean the variety is protected worldwide. For separate protection in different countries, he has to freshly apply in different countries plant varietal protection authority. Office of the Registrar shall issue acknowledgement receipt and number which shall be used for all future references, including the checking of the status of application. Application will be received on first come first serve basis. No application will be received after business hours. After submission of application, it will be processed according to provisional rule of 29/2 of Ppv-Fr rules 2003. The next question is, what is the difference between Seeds Act 1966 and Ppv-Fr 2001? Seeds Act 1966, Seeds Rule 1968 with Seed Control Order 1983 are the legal instruments for regulating the production, distribution and the quality of certain seeds for sale and for matters connected therewith, whereas Ppv-Fr 2001 grants the proprietary ownership of the variety to the breeder and farmers for their varieties. Intellectual property rights are the private rights which confer to the legitimate owners exclusive rights to produce, sell, market, distribute, import or export the variety registered under Ppv-Fr Act. UPO. UPO means International Union for the Protection of New Plant Varieties. India has been given the status of observer. Can a plant variety be protected under the patent law in India? No. Can a foreign applicant obtain registration of their variety under Ppv-Fr Act 2001? Yes, the protection or procedure for obtaining plant variety registration is same for Indian citizens and foreigners. However, foreign applicant must furnish their address for service in India while applying for plant varietal registration. What is the difference between patent and Ppv-Fr Act? Patent deals with intellectual property right over devices of industrial applications, whereas Ppv-Fr confers intellectual property rights to plant breeders who have bred or developed plant varieties. That means industry is different, and the authority, that is patent, and authority, that means Ppv-Fr Act just protects the rights of breeders and researchers. Patent is a set of exclusive rights granted by a state or national body to an inventor of or their assignee for a limited period of time in exchange of the public disclosure of an invention. Ppv-Fr Act gives rise to farmers, breeders, and researchers, beside giving protection to varieties of all crop species which are notified under the Act. There is also provision for benefit sharing, compensation to farmers, recognition and award to the farmers for supporting conservation and sustainable use of the plant genetic resources. What is National Gene Fund, and for what purpose it is utilized? National Gene Fund has been constituted by the central government to promote, recognize, and reward those farmers who are engaged in conserving the genetic resources of land races and wild relatives of economic plants and their improvement through selection and preservation in the agro-biodiversity hotspots, and also to a farmer who is engaged in conserving the genetic resources of land races, wild relatives of economic plants, and their improvement through selection and preservation, provided material so selected and preserved has been used as donor of the genes in varieties registered under the Act. Gene fund shall be enriched from the money received in the form of compensation, annual fees, benefit sharing, contributions from national and international organizations. The money collected under this fund shall be utilized for reimbursement of benefit sharing, reimbursement of compensation, support and reward to farming community, particularly the tribal and rural communities engaged in conservation, improvement, and preservation of genetic and economic resources of plants and their wild relatives, particularly in the area identified as agro-biodiversity hotspots. Gene fund shall also be used for supporting the conservation and sustainable use of genetic resources, including in situ and ex situ collection, and for strengthening the capability of panchayat in carrying out such conservation and sustainable use. The fund is also utilized in rewarding the persons who are or farmers who are actively involved in conservation process, and they will be awarded as gene saviors. That means gene savior is an award given by Ppv-Fr authority to the farmer or conserver of the specific traditional or other varieties. What are different kinds of award, reward, and recognition? Three types of award, reward, and recognition given by Ppv-Fr authority every year. Every year, authority confers 5 Plant Genome Savior Community Award, 10 Plant Genome Savior Farmer Award, and 20 Plant Genome Savior Farmer Recognition. The cash prize, reward, and recognition for this is The authority is consulting with the Government of India, has established 5 plant genome savior community award of rupees 10 lakhs each along with citizens and memento to be conferred every year to the farming communities for their contribution in the conserving PGR. In accordance with the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Rule 2010, 10 Plant Genome Savior Awards rewards of rupees 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh each with citation and memento, and also 20 Plant Genome Savior Farmer recognition of 1 lakh each annually to the farmer engaged in the conservation of genetic resources of land races and wild relatives of economic plants and their improvement through selection and preservation. That means not only a farmer involved in conserving and collecting the germplasm, also who is making the selection and preservation are also rewarded under this process and awards. Who can apply for this award? Every year, authority invites application for award, reward, and recognition. By the way, by advertising in leading newspapers, maybe in Hindi and English, and application form is also available on the website of the Ppv-Fr authority. Benefits for public and private sector of India from a convention country agreement. Public and private sector of India will be able to get registration in convention country based on their registration in India. This will save time and money, and based on a single registration they'll be able to obtain another registration in convention country. What are the benefits for Indian breeders with regard to India holding in observer status in Oppo? Answer is India is able to observe the techno-legal proceedings going on in UPO, and breeders pick up 5 points from UPO system for adopting in India. Is there any overlap in the benefit sharing provisions of the Biological Diversity Act and Ppv-Fr Act? The answer is no, absolutely not. The benefit sharing in Ppv-Fr Act 2001 applies only to registered varieties, and that too the claim for benefit sharing has to be filled within a period of 6 months from the date of advertisement in the Plant Varietal Journal, whereas benefit sharing under Biological Diversity Act applies to flora and fauna, and flora is plants, is fauna is animals, and it is granted to at the time of commercial utilization of biological resources. Is there any relation between the provisions of Ppv-Fr Act and International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture with respect to material in the public domain? The answer is Ppv-Fr Act 2001 grants intellectual property right to breeder in India, and accordingly material in public domain can be used by anyone without fear of infringement, and consequently it differs from ITPG-Fr in this regard. Can a breeder ask for a seed sample of a protected variety from the National Gene Bank, or if so, when? Yes, definitely a farmer can ask. Breeder can ask for sample of seeds of protected variety from National Gene Bank only when the registered breeder has failed to meet the reasonable demand of the public with regard to the registered variety. In such case, compulsory license is granted to eligible breeders and royalty is paid to the registered breeder. Further, compulsory license is granted only after hearing the registered breeder and granting extension of time for him to produce adequate quantities of registered varieties to meet the demand of public. Is vegetatively propagated material can be stored in the National Gene Bank? Does the authority store a DNA sample? Yes, the authority maintains the vegetatively propagated material in field gene bank. Remember, for maintaining vegetatively propagated plants, field gene bank is there, and DNA sample is not stored or sought from the applicant breeder. Why do you need to submit inbred seeds for registration of hybrid, and What is the provision for the safeguard at the authority of gene bank? Is it possible to ask for a sample of the parental line during the protection of the hybrid or after the termination of this right? The answer is, as mentioned here, it is only sought in case of compulsory license, that is, when the hybrid is registered and if the registered breeder fails to meet the reasonable demands of the public with respect to the registered variety. During the period of protection, apart from the case of compulsory license, samples will not be granted to anybody. Even after the termination of the right, the invalid seeds will be returned to the registered breeder. Next question is, how are seeds of the harvest stored after dust testing? The seeds of harvest after dust testing are destroyed in an eco-friendly way. What happens to seeds of gene bank stored after the term of protection ends? The Ppv-Fr authority in its 28th meeting has held that seed of registered variety will be handed over to the National Bank or for plant genetic resources. If multiple hybrids from the same applicant have one common parent, does the applicant have to submit common parent seed again and again as it is meant for gene bank storage only? The answer is, the applicant can mention the same to the authority and accordingly the requirement will be dispensed with. That means the thing depends on the availability of seed material in the gene bank. Can the applicant ask for stored seed samples in case of infringement? The stored seed sample will be furnished only in case of compulsory license, and in case of infringement, it will be furnished only on the order of honorable court and not otherwise. What are the requirements for a foreign company to be registered of their varieties in India? Only one condition is required, for foreign company has to furnish the address for service in India. Apart from this, no other requirements is needed. Can a foreign applicant claim priority right for an application in other country if the first application was filled in India? It is a convention country, then the applicant can claim priority right, otherwise no. Can a foreign applicant claim priority rights for an application in India if the one application was filed in another country? No. The priority can be claimed only if the country in which the application has been filled in is a convention country. How can the applicant check the real-time status of the application? He can get the details by using his accession number in the authority website. Is there a maximum period from date of application to finalization of the procedure? Yes, there are 3 years from the date of filling of the application, but however the application will be processed and registered much earlier if application is complete in all respect and seats and documents are deposited on time. Is there a public database for choosing reference varieties as checks for registration of data? Current databases is not public, but authority is making effort to make it public. The authority is asking to submit parental lines in case of an application of the hybrid. Do you check whether these lines are the correct ones? No, the authority does not check. It accepts the declaration given by the registered breeder. In this regard, no checking and verification is done. Additional provisions for registration of essentially derived varieties in specific transgenic varieties means essentially derived varieties can also be registered. However, in case of transgenic varieties, clearance from genetic engineering approval committee have to be obtained for commercial cultivation. Does the authority use advanced dust testing procedures like molecular techniques in the examination of distinctness, uniformity, and stability? No. The dust testing is morphological based and not molecular based, but the special tests are conducted in order to go for the dust testing. That means apart from this, molecular techniques are used if the dust testing fails. For each species, there are multiple dust testing stations identified. Can the applicant indicate a preference for one or two of the dust testing stations? Will the applicant be informed? Yes, the applicant can indicate and the applicant will be informed for the same. Is it true that the dust test will always be performed at two different dust testing stations? Yes, it is true that dust will always be performed at two different dust testing stations, but it is also true that for extant varieties for 1 year of testing. However, the second center is only for backup purposes, and if any consistency arises, the data of main center will be relied upon. Further, the main center is chosen based on the point that where the candidate variety can express its potentiality to be maximum. That means where the candidate variety has to be released or is already released, at that condition or at that station or that place, the test must be conducted. At what moments will the applicant be informed of the progress in the DUS procedure? Once the initial security of the application is over, the applicant will be informed of the progress of DUS procedure. At what moments will the applicant be informed of the progress in DUS procedure? There is a procedure of DUS monitoring. The applicant can monitor the DUS trials and anytime with the permission of the registrar. He can visit the dust testing centers, and after the completion of dust testing, the copy of the dust test report will be forwarded to the applicant. Is there a possibility for the applicant to visit the dust test of his own variety? Yes. Is there a possibility for breeder to visit dust tests of other varieties under application to avoid applications that are not entered by the true breeder? Yes, there is also provision for this. What are the provisions to safeguard breeders' interest against misuse, infringement of material under the Act, effective from the date of filing of the post grant? The answer is safeguard is provided both during pendency of registration and after registration. During pendency of registration, there is provisional protection, and after registration, there is provision for infringement whereby the infringing material are seized by the court and compensation is granted to the registered breeder. Further, criminal remedies are also provided for violation of rights of registered breeder. We understand that the current provision providing for provision is deemed invalid by Delhi High Court, and now a special leave for appeal is filed at the Supreme Court. What is the current situation for breeder that have a right under application? The Honorable Supreme Court of India has been pleased to grant stay against the order of Honorable Delhi High Court, and accordingly provisional protection is available for all applicant breeders. These are the questions how the law and order works in court if the variety undergoes infringement. The details of breeders' rights on the exclusive rights on the registered variety as it releases to sell, export, produce and license, etc. Here the field crop, the breeder has exclusive rights of 15 years, and for trees and vines it is 18 years. Exclusive right means other than registered breeder or his agent or licensee, no one can sell, export, produce and market the registered variety and as well as use the registered denomination. Under the farmer's exemption, the farmer shall be entitled to produce, save, use, sow, resow, exchange, share or sell his farm product, but he is not entitled to sell the branded seeds. What is the definition of branded here? Is there referring to seed certification or to the use of protected trademark or to the use of any other variety denomination? The answer is branded seed means any seed put in a packet or container, including indicating that it is protected under the law. It does not refer to seed certificate or use of protected trademark. Use of registered denomination by any person other than registered breeder or his agent or his licensee is not allowed. Is this farmer exemption also applicable to vegetatively multiplied species? Yes, it is applicable. The possibilities to add more species in the list, 50 more crop species to be notified are in pipeline. That means already 147 species are registered and more 50 are under pipeline to bring them under protection. Breeder, usually the breeder of a new variety is entitled to plant breeders' rights protection. The reason for writing Act 16A person claiming to be a breeder is nothing but the breeder himself or itself. Further, it has been drafted to include assignees and successors of the breeder. The words are used only as an abundant caution that till the rights of a breeder over his variety are established, he is provisionally treated as a person claiming to be a breeder. Conditions for protection according to Article 15. There shall be registered as new, distinct, uniform, and stable. Section 21 point 3 of C and D covers cases when the certificates of registration is not of public interest and in many cases adverse effect on environment. This has been done because as in all IP laws and IPR should not be a bane to public and it should have public utility and not public advisory. A transitional period for novelty. Is it possible for breeder in a limited period of time to apply for varieties which do not meet the novelty criteria anymore for species which are recently included into the list of protectable genera and species Act of 29/2? Breeder can apply under the extant variety category if their variety does not meet the novelty criteria. Breeder can apply under extant variety category or new variety category only with regard to species notified under the section 29/2 of Ppv-Fr Authority Act 2001. Next question is farmer. The term farmer is defined in Article 2K of the Ppv-Fr and is used in many chapters in Ppv-Fr. What is the exact meaning of farmer in the area of growing ornamentals and fruits? Here, the farmer of field crops, ornamental crops and fruits is same. The legal definition of farmer must be understood in socio-economic context as the farmer are directly involved in cultivation or directly supervising the cultivation, and farmers involving in conservation also come within the definition of farmer. Only small and marginal farmers involved in subsistence farming can claim the farmer's right. Takeover of dust reports. Is it at this moment possible for the registrar to take over dust report from foreign countries where the variety has been already examined for dust? As given here, if the convention country agreement is executed, then dust testing report of the said countries can be taken on record. Will it cause a problem if the similar variety that are used in the foreign dusters are not available in India? If the convention country agreement is executed, when the dust testing report of the foreign country will be accepted as such, and accordingly the question of non-availability of similar variety in India does not arise. Propagating material. According to definition of Article 2R, the propagating material of a vegetatively reproduced variety is any plant material from which another plant can be reproduced true to type, which includes all cut flowers having meristematic cells. Exclusive rights to title holders from Article 28. plant breeder provide for to the title holder an exclusive right to sell, market, distribute, import, export the variety. The plant material is included the scope of protection, also asking for consideration of definition of variety in Article 2 and the definition of propagating material in Article 2R. Breeders' rights are applicable over all plant varieties over which registration is obtained. The next question is it possible for the title holder of a protected variety to enforce his rights in respect to harvested material which originates from illegal protection material? Example, can a title holder stop the sales of apples if the apple tree have been planted without authorization? The answer is yes. If the tree has been planted without authorization, then the registered breeder could proceed legally against the infringer for infringement of plant breeders' rights. The protection or unprotected essentially derived variety falls automatically under the protection of its initial variety. It is a wrong statement. The meaning under Article 23(6) is protection have to be obtained separately for initial variety and essentially derived variety. Remember that is under Article 23(6). The mutation of a vegetatively propagated ornamental or fruit variety is always considered to be an essential derived variety. Prima facie, a mutation of the vegetatively propagated ornamental or fruit variety is considered as essentially derived variety. Next question is, when it is a plant breeder right for the plant material exhausted in the territory of India, which section in the law provided for exhaustion? There is no particular section for exhaustion of breeders' rights, but section 24(6) of the Act makes it clear that after a period of protection, the plant breeder right comes to the end of 15th year in case of field and 18th year in case of vines. Thank you. I hope the information furnished by me is helpful for you. If you have any doubts and queries, please put it under the comment box. Keep on sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you once again.